If I Should Die by Donevy Westphal. Available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other retailers. He rolled his window down and heard a motor humming up the street. The sound died away in the distance. Julius let his breath out. He couldn't stay here. That pickup would be back. He backed out and continued down a rutted path that grew more narrow and overgrown. In the distance, Julius could see another gravel road intersect this one. He hesitated at the end of the forsaken road and looked both ways. Hearing nothing but birds and natural sounds and seeing nothing moving, he pulled out onto the gravel road. His glance in the rearview mirror caught a shimmering of light behind him. His foot pushed the accelerator. "Come on, Nellie." The speed increased at a snail's pace. "I think I could pedal faster than," he muttered, and his words broke off as he recognized the road. "Hallelujah, I was right." A moving van, the trusty delivery service in large letters, across the side, sat backed up in the driveway of his newfound bed and breakfast. Julius turned on two wheels into the drive as the tan pickup approached from the front of him. He came to a stop between the house and the van, and the tan truck pulled in and parked directly behind him. Michael barreled out of the passenger side of the pickup and stormed up to Julius's side of the car. "I don't know if that's how you learn to drive, mister, but in our part of the world," Julius held up a hand and motioned back over his shoulder as the red pickup whizzed on past, not slowing down. Michael's eyes widened and he looked back at Julius. "That's pretty good for someone who hasn't been here for 24 hours. You always make friends so fast?" "Sometimes I'm quicker than that." Julius closed his window and got out. "I thought I was supposed to meet you over there. These folks weren't supposed to be here until tomorrow, but here they are." Michael turned as the driver of the pickup, a short woman with black curly hair, slid out and approached. "Donna, this is Julius Armstrong, Mom's stray that Lewis told you about. Julius, this is Lewis's wife, Donna." "I'm sorry about having to cut in front of you, ma'am, but I'm glad I wasn't going any faster," she frowned, but didn't turn away as apology. She turned to the delivery man. "We weren't expecting this delivery until tomorrow, but," the stress showed in her large brown eyes. "Michael, check the door, please." Her voice contained a soft southwestern accent. Michael opened the wrought iron yard gate and walked to the entryway. Voila! When he turned the door handle, the door swung open. "Ma'am, that door would not open. I tried, and Fred tried. It would not budge." "Greg," the largest delivery man said, turning bright red. "Let's get this furniture unloaded," Fred frowned. "This is going to put us behind and we'll miss our lunch." Julius, Michael, and the two men unloaded several well-wrapped pieces of furniture and carried them upstairs. The upstairs hadn't been part of the tour. Julius covertly studied the small bit he could see. It was a large room with books, an antique love seat, and a deep cushioned settee. But the real eye-catcher was the baby grand piano set in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the front yard. Will this place never cease to amaze me? The money someone must have had to do all of this. "We're sorry for the mix-up," Donna told the delivery man. "Why not come on over and have a bite of lunch? It will be late when you get back to Herman." "Well, now," the largest man surveyed his hostess. "If it isn't any trouble, I think we'll do that." "Greg," Fred growled, "I don't want to. Who's driving?" Okay, have it your way." Fred threw up his hands. "If the boss says anything, it'll be your hide." Fred slammed the passenger side door. The smell of fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and freshly baked cobbler dominated the air as they walked into Lewis and Donna's farmhouse. Julius was seated at the large round table, and after the blessing, he filled his plate as the food was passed. Various conversations hummed around as Julius put on his vacant look and just listened. "Hey, this is some good fried chicken, ain't it, Fred?" Greg finished his third helping of fried chicken and mashed potatoes. "It sure is." Fred waved him away, still talking. "This peach cobbler is the best I've ever had." Greg pushed himself back from the table. "Sure enjoyed the meal. Thanks for inviting us. We gotta be going now. Come on, Fred." "You know," Fred elbowed his companion as they walked toward the door, "you were right. A real nice family." "Come on. I have something to show you." As dishes and food disappeared from the table, Mrs. McDonald motioned for Julius to follow her. Louis and his family have a nice place here. Julie stood at the back door and perused the large covered deck, complete with several scattered tables and a large area for grilling and entertaining. They put a lot of work in here. Do they help with your bed and breakfast? They do have a nice place. She grasped the handrail and led down steps into a pathway that threaded through trees and shrubs. Every year there's a new project. For instance, some of the trees are bearing fruit and some are just getting their feet settled. She waved her walking stick at several trees. Julius inspected the pathway threading through the trees and shrubs. From the road, the landscape tricks the eye into believing that the house is set close to the hill. The deck, the walkway, and the herb and vegetable garden, all this back here is hidden from view. Emerging from a cluster of trees, they were confronted with a vine-covered courtyard. Mrs. McDonald crossed the area and opened a round front door to a quaint cottage set in the side of the hill. She paused a moment, allowing her eyes to roam as if trying to feel his reaction. So, what do you think? From the entryway, his gaze wandered across the large, light-filled room. He cleared his throat. Don't suppose the three bears might come back and catch us unawares. I think we're safe. She smiled and led him past the coat closet and into a cozy kitchen. Have a seat, kiddo. She motioned toward a pleasant eating area just off the kitchen. Since we just finished lunch, she pulled a wrapped container out of the freezer. This will be for later. Julia sat at the round table and looked out the large window. Mrs. McDonald maneuvered with agile movements around the island between the eating area and the kitchen. So, what do you think? She sat down looking directly at him. It's quite a comfortable hideaway. Like something out of Tolkien, and nodded his head. The inside appears larger than the outside. The cottage is invisible from the outside, with the ivy climbing roses and flowers reaching over the courtyard, and yes, but at first glance looks like a small cubbyhole, but this is quite large. Julius, she picked up a rattan coaster from the middle of the table and began pulling at the edges. This is where I live. Ruth, Michael, and I are just house sitting for Laura and her family. While I'm confessing, I should add, we don't have a bed and breakfast establishment either. There is a regular, bona fide bed and breakfast south and east on the edge of town, but you went west and north. Smith's B&B is out of commission for at least a week. They had storm damage 2 weeks ago. However, if you feel cheated or unhappy with our arrangements, no one will hold it against you if you want to try the real bed and breakfast. She tossed a coaster a short way into the air and let it fall on the table. Being blind, she could not see the smile that kept trying to break into a laugh. The laugh finally won. Ha ha! Julius stopped to catch his breath. Your daughter doesn't happen to be married to a Juan Alvarez Gonzalez, does he? Why, I guess that is his name. Her eyes grew wide with amazement. How could you know that? That was the name I heard the delivery man give. Julius wiped his eyes with his hanky. I'm glad you can laugh. Her face reddened. She picked up the coaster again and began pulling at it. Well, now I have my confession made. Come help fill my bird feeders. I'm sure Michael has neglected them. She tossed the coaster aside and slid her chair back from the table. Crossing to the other side of the island, she tugged a container from the pantry shelf. And of course, I'm helpless. Here's the bird feed. Ma'am, his voice held a note of laughter. You are a lot of things. Right now, impatient, maybe? Helpless isn't a term that describes you. He took the container of feed from her, and I suppose that explains the joke. Mrs. McDonald walked to the enormous westerly window in the breakfast nook, touched the woodwork beside it, and what looked like the window slid open, as did Julius's mouth. She stepped out into the warm afternoon sunshine. Close your mouth, she said. You're not a flycatcher, and what joke is that? Laura and her dime. Julius pulled the top off the first feeder and poured birdseed in. He now had a small portion of the story, but something here didn't fit. The amount of time, money, and the technology. Doesn't living here and all of this cost a lot of money? His eyes narrowed. How do you manage? It doesn't cost any more to live here than it would cost to live elsewhere. We have our separate areas of work and support, such as Lewis Jr. is putting in irrigation for another local farmer. Mrs. McDonald held the container for Julius as he replaced the top.